Hi, welcome everybody. So I'm Arjan van Leeuwen and I work for Opera. And we're going to talk about breaking things. So for some time now, Opera has had a built-in ad blocker. And one thing that we know about the ad blocker is that users really love it. They love it so much that we know that if users find their way to enable the ad blocker in Opera, then they'll stay longer with the product and they'll have more fun from using the browser. So even our own statistics show that what we want is people to enable the ad blocker. So when the user starts Opera for the first time, they'll receive this onboarding screen that you see here. And one of the things we try to do there is to get people to enable the ad blocker right at the start when they start using Opera. So the idea is that they click that big switch at the bottom, and at the same time you see, I couldn't put in an animation because it's really hard in this presentation to put in videos, but it shows a little animation that tells you where the ad blocker is in the Opera UI. And then when you hit the big switch, you will see the ad blocking dialog come up that normally hides at the top right in the address bar, and it has like a couple of options related to ad blocking. So this is where you can turn off ad blocker for a specific site. Recently, we've added acceptable ads to our ad blocker. It's also something that is explained here. You can disable it if you don't like it. And we also have some other content filtering related options, like you can enable our tracker blocker as well, which is based on easy privacy. And very important, and I'm going to get back to this, at the bottom of the dialog has a little warning. It's not too scary, because if we make it too scary, we scare off people too much. But it says in small letters, I hope you can read it, blocking content can cause some websites to not work properly. And this is true. Now, not everyone goes through this onboarding, right? Because some people already have Opera, they're existing users, or they just close the onboarding because they don't like to. They know how a browser works. So then probably the first time they get into touch with our ad blocker is when they use the quick settings screen. So that's when you press a button on the top left in the browser UI. You see the setup screen, and the ad blocking is there, pretty prominent. If you can see, it's under privacy and security. So many people find their way there. They turn it on from there, and it's a very nice way to turn it on because you can immediately see the effect. It will refresh the page that is visible at that moment and show you the ads that are blocked, the number of ads that are blocked, so you can basically see the effect live. This is my preferred way of doing that. There's extended settings where you can turn on ad blocking. You look like this. You can also have some more options here, like managing exceptions or adding your own block lists. Again, acceptable ads is here. And we even figured out that some people really equate ad blockers with extensions. So they might even know that Opera has a built-in ad blocker, but the first time they start the browser, they're going to go to extensions and try and find it there. So don't shoot me for this, but we actually promote our own ad blocker in the extension screen. So there you can also enable the ad blocker. It even happens in the add-on store for Opera, where people end up as well. There's a couple of built-in Opera features that are promoted as on the recommended list in the extension store. And we have plenty of people who manage to figure out here that Opera has a built-in ad blocker. And then they start enabling it. And all these ways, when you enable the ad blocker, you always end up with the same dialog that tells you this is where the ad blocker is, this is how you can turn it off, and it might damage some pages. So the intention of all of this, all these different places, all these different paths that we've created to enable the ad blocker, is to get as many people as possible to enable it because they like it. They want to have an ad blocker. And we've been very successful with this. It really worked. We have a lot of our users using the built-in ad blocker now. Like this graphic, if you were here at the conference in 2019, I showed the same map. I updated the numbers, but I didn't have the original drawing anymore, so I couldn't update the circle. So this is now completely inconsistent. You see the number does not conform to the blue line in the circle there. So sorry for that, but what's great about it is that you can actually see how the numbers changed since 2019. So if you take a look, for example, at the US there, it says 40%, that's a statistic from last week, so it's very recent. And you can see in the thick blue line in the circle that it used to be 3 years ago, around 25%. So it's a big increase in users using the ad blocker. And yeah, something else you can see is that in some countries, almost half of our users, practically half of our users, are using the ad blocker. So you can see that in Canada, in the UK, in France. So we really have a lot of people using the ad blocker. Even in countries where we weren't that successful, like in Ukraine, Russia, Japan, we still managed to increase it a lot compared to 3 years ago. So this is great, right? We did exactly what we wanted, and we have more happy users. They're happy ad blocking users. Yeah, everything's good. Yes, but no. Not everyone's happy. We have a whole new group of complaints from our users. What's the #1 task of a web browser? It's browsing the web, it's showing websites, showing them correctly. What's the #1 reason that people change or leave an alternative browser? It's that a site did not display correctly. So we get a lot of complaints from users about sites not working correctly. And that's always been this way. We're used to it. It's part of the job. There's lots of different places where users can voice their complaints. There are forums, there's blogs with comments, there are the bug reports that are coming in. We have people on social media that are handling things from our users. And they always, whenever there's like a site not working correctly, we always give a standard reply to people. Turn off your extensions, try to get settings back to default, and turn off your ad blocker. And in many, many cases, this solves the problem of the user. Not our problem, the user's problem. Because our problem was that the site was not displaying correctly, and only a few users reached out to us to talk about it. So let me tell you about a couple of common problems that happen when the ad blocker prohibits the page from working correctly. And you're all going to recognize this. So I just thought it was fun to make a quick list. The first one, a button is not responding when you click it. And this is something that tends to happen, to me at least, exactly when I've done a lot of work on a site. And for example, I filled a shopping cart with exactly the products that I wanted to order. And I've been very careful in my choices. And then at the end, there's an order button, and I click it, and it doesn't do anything. What do? I turn off the ad blocker, because I know what's going wrong. But what do users do? Nothing. They maybe try shopping on a different site. Maybe they change their browser. But it didn't work as intended. This next one you'll know about if you have any cookie dialog blockers. It's very annoying when it happens. The ad blocker managed to hide the cookie dialog, either because of a filter that was meant for that, or because of a filter that wasn't meant to do that, but it did it anyway. And what didn't go away was a functionality that the site made so that users can't scroll the page while the cookie dialog is visible. And then you're stuck on the site. Like if you're on any news site, the main interaction you have with the site, the main thing you do when you read a site is actually scrolling. And you can't do it. It doesn't work. So if you can't scroll a page, who are you going to blame for that? Yeah, the browser. didn't scroll the page. Then you have the blockers, right? You go to a site, and the first thing that happens is a pop-up comes up and says, I see you have ad blocking enabled. Please disable it to see this site. And personally, I think that sites do have some sort of a right to say that you can only see them if you see the ads as well. And maybe you disagree with me, that's fine. But what I really hate is that on some sites you have this, and at the moment that you decide, okay, I will turn off my ad blocker for you, for this site, they suddenly have like immediate wall-to-wall ads on the whole site, everything moving. It's like, it seems that the worst sites have these dialogues, and have the idea that if I have the courtesy of disabling my ad blocker for you, you should have the courtesy to display some friendly ads to me, because that was the reason I had an ad blocker in the first place. Anyway, that's what happens. And I'm mentioning it here, not because of that, but because a lot of users see this, and they do not know how to get out of it, because they haven't figured out how to turn off the ad blocker on a site. Half of our users have enabled the ad blocker, but how many have actually seen that dialog that allows you to turn it off for a specific site? Do they know how to do it? And a lot of sites, I know, add some kind of description or explanation on how to do it, but you know, most of the sites will not describe how to do it for Opera. They will describe how to do it in a very popular extension that will remain unnamed here. So yeah, it's a problem. People get stuck. Another one. This one never happens on YouTube. Everyone knows YouTube always works. The video doesn't play when you're on you want to live stream some like local cookie baking contest on your regional newspaper's website. And the ad blocker has successfully blocked a video ad. That's very nice, but it also managed to block the whole video that you wanted to see. Yeah. What are you going to do? And then I didn't yet say about the absolute worst thing that can happen with the ad blocker. And that's that you cannot see what you wanted to see. Sometimes elements just get hidden that shouldn't be hidden. And I ran into this very recently. I was trying to order something on a site of the French post office, and it managed to hide the checkbox for agreeing to terms and conditions. And that's really annoying, because you cannot continue without clicking that checkbox. And I was trying to find where to click it. It just wasn't there. You do not know what is not there. So in the end, of course, I found out that I can turn off the ad blocker, and I can see the checkbox, then I can click the checkbox, and then I can continue. But these are real problems. If you don't see something on the page, you don't know that something is wrong. You might never realize that there was something essential that you needed, either to read or to do something on the page. So there are actually a lot of market differences with this as well, because the internet is a big place, as you all know, but it's divided into much smaller places. And in terms of different spheres, you have like different languages and regions where there are sites. And it's very common that the filter meant for an ad that appears here in the Netherlands is breaking something on a site in France, just because, well, that wasn't tested when it was created. The problem is that there are users in all these different countries and speaking all these different languages and using all these different sites, many small sites that I don't know about and no one at Opera knows about. So if things break there, we will not realize. And we need our users to tell us. We're not everywhere. Maybe something broke in our ad blocker. Maybe there's something wrong with the filter list. Maybe we need to do a quick fix somewhere. But we don't know about it unless we get told by users. So how can users tell us things? Well, there's these usual ways that I mentioned, forums, blogs, bug reports, but those are quite specific. Most people won't find them. For other things in the browser, when we have browser features, we use something called the feedback dialog. It allows people to tell us whether something's to their liking or not. And this works very well for specific browser features. Here you have one in the snapshot feature. Here you can see the same thing in the address bar in Opera. And when people click either thumbs up or thumbs down, then they can leave a comment. They don't need to, but they can. The reaction gets sent to Opera. And the numbers that we get from this are extremely useful because they allow us to analyze the trends. So here I have something from a feature called Easy Files. It's a file selector in Opera. It's not very interesting what it does right now, but what you can see here is that from the ratings, we immediately see when something goes wrong, when there's something that the users don't like. So you can see there suddenly drop down. This was our moment to go check the comments and see what's happening there. Then we make a fix for it. People slowly get the update, and the ratings go back to their usual number. So this really works for features in Opera, but it doesn't work for sites, the main functionality of the browser. We've tried creating a dialog for users to tell us when there's a problem with a site. And we tried changing this dialog and getting more people to actually tell us things about it. But it's surprisingly hard to get people to tell you anything about things going wrong. The input we get from this is either too generic or too specific. It's either nothing works or this site that I found somewhere doesn't work. And because we don't get enough people saying when things don't work, we can't do analysis on it because we don't know whether someone saying that one site doesn't work means there's a problem on the site or something else. We need much more input to be able to say, okay, we can detect that there's a problem on this specific site because many people are complaining about it. We just don't get enough people saying this. But the biggest thing is really that users don't know something is wrong. Like I mentioned with the hidden elements, like I mentioned with the buttons not clicking, people might realize that something's wrong, but they're not thinking about the ad blocker when they see it. They just think something's not working correctly. What do I do? They might blame the site. It's good for us if they do this. But usually they blame the browser. And you see that when we do get a bug report about the site having some breakage because of a filter or some bug in our ad blocker, it often comes with the notice, I tried this in Chrome and it works there. And well, it did because they didn't have an ad blocker installed there. And we don't really have the opportunity to tell users, okay, maybe the same would happen. Maybe you can test it in an ad blocker in Chrome. So yeah, the user came to browse the internet and they left because they couldn't browse the internet. I'm not here to blame filter list authors. I know you're all doing a fantastic job at making very specific filters, and most of the time, they work great. The thing is that whether it's the fault of our ad blocker or some filter list that we use, we are doing changes to a site that the author did not expect. And sometimes that breaks things. Maybe the site is doing an update and then something breaks. Maybe we are doing a filter list change that breaks something. It's in the nature of things. If we change the site and make changes that the author didn't expect, then sometimes it will break things. Actually, I wanted to say that the speed of fixes on the most used filter lists is really amazing, because the most common fix for our users when they have something not working is to wait a few days. And then actually the filter list will catch up and the problem will be solved. And that is really amazing. But the problem is, it's not enough. It's too late for some people. It's not enough because not everyone knows that ad blocking was behind this. it's not enough because not everyone knows that ad blocking is not an exact science. I often get comments saying, like, why isn't this ad block, this was changed? Your ad blocker is broken. And it's not enough because for some users, a site not working just means that the browser is not working. I'm kind of sorry if you came to this talk expecting solutions from me, because I don't have them. We're trying a lot of technical solutions. We're seeing a lot of advances in this space, and you will see them at this conference. There'll be very interesting new things to try, which will surely improve the situation. But keep in mind that there will still be sites breaking, and that this is actually a big problem for users. They don't always know it's because of ad blocking, but they do want it fixed. I think we need more user input, us together, and I know that the input we get isn't enough, and we haven't been successful in getting more input that we need from our users. So I'd like you also to keep that in the back of your mind and see if we can develop together more ways to get input and to get a way for users to tell us that something's broken. Because even if it's a little breakage, and even if it's on a site that no one uses, there's always someone who uses it. It's a real problem. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Arjan. This was very interesting. I can definitely relate to a lot of the issues you described. So just out of curiosity, I will just ask the audience here, who of you has never experienced any of these issues that Arjan described? I didn't expect any hands, to be honest. Who of you could relate to every of the issues that Arjan described, more or less? That seems like nice. 60%, 70% of the people here. So yeah, that is quite a lot. I really like the ways you described how you're trying to tackle the feedback loop with the users and trying with these intuitive dialogue, UIs, and so on. And yeah, we actually have a bit of time left here now for questions and answers. And if we have some in the audience, you may have noticed that I brought this wonderful little cube with me. I see already a question coming up. Just a quick explanation. This is basically a catch box. It's a microphone that you just want to tilt towards you with the black part and speak right into it. May look funny, but this is how it works. And Susanne is going to throw it at you. Andre, heads up.
Does it work?
It does.
It works.
We can hear you.
Have you tried any automatic solution to detect
Closer.
To detect
Yes.
websites breakage?
Can you maybe repeat the question just to make sure our remote
Have you tried any automatic solution to detect websites breakage?
Yes, we've done some experiments with that, but we have not been able to make this work reliably. And I think, especially with hidden elements, we have very big problems deciding what's correct and what's not.
Short follow-up. By reliably, do you mean that you had false positives, or that you had stuff not detected?
False positives.
See, thank you.
Way too many.
Hi, Ian. Thanks a lot for the presentation. A question from my side. From the problems that you described, how many would you attribute to the ad filtering engine and how many to the filter lists?
So it's, I think it's very hard to describe for me because usually when there's a problem with the ad filtering engine, with our ad filtering engine, we actually get much more input about this because then there's going to be more sites breaking because it's going to be a generic breakage. And then this allows us to fix it, and then we'll get less of that. But more of the specific feedback when it comes to individual sites, it's usually about something in the filter list, doing something that doesn't work correctly. What we usually do if we get an issue like this, someone in our test team we'll first try to do the same filter list in another ad blocker just to see if it's our ad blocking engine to blame or the filter list. And then usually when it's the filter list, if it's a small site, they will actually not continue. They will just hope that the filter list author fixes it quickly.
Got it, thank you.
Throw it. Yes.
Is there much communication between Opera and filter list authors? So if something does break, there should be like an open line of communication. So if website A breaks, that rather than just hope and wait something that gets fixed, is submit a report or just let somebody know. Like I guess go through GitHub and maybe submit a report saying, here's a website that's breaking. Can you guys see the same issue we're seeing?
Right, so the question is there communication between the filter authors?
Yeah, and Opera, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, so usually if there's something on a big site that we know a fix for, then we'll try to submit that fix to a filter list author, but I can't say there's a lot of communication between us and the filter authors, and we should probably improve that.
Okay, that's good.
All right, I'm gonna throw it right here. Attention, ready? There we go.
All right, Carlos Jurgensen here. I was wondering if we can improve the communication also between ad blockers and website authors / publishers. Like best practices to follow, or if there's some communication like, oh, something breaks, users break, like users report breakage on your website, be informed about that.
Yeah, I think that's a very important one. We have some experience in this because there's also, of course, sites that break because you're using a different browser. And in this case, usually we need to, hunt the website owner and tell them, look, something's wrong on your site. You're detecting a user agent, and this should work in Opera, but it doesn't. But I have to say that reality is that it's very, very hard to reach website authors and get them to change anything. And this has been a consistent problem throughout the company's existence.
Yeah, I get that there's like websites who you can't reach out at all, but there's also like maybe better players who want to make sure their website is set up in such a way that the chance of breaking is as low as possible.
Right. So yeah, I guess here there's a chance also to publish more and
Sounds good.
get people to see.
Okay. Any other question from the audience? Over there.
So I like the idea of having feedback from users about sites breaking, and I wonder if you said that there's not enough feedback about sites, it's too generic or too specific. Do you think it's a fundamental issue with users not knowing what to report or how to report, or is it just a UX problem of the feedback mechanism not being discoverable in the UI of Opera? What do you think?
I hope it's a UX problem, because that means we can solve it. But the different things we've tried, we have not yet gotten enough feedback. There's also the thing that you cannot really disturb users too much and tell them you have to fill in this thing, because that's also not something they want. So has to be a balance that can be found between telling users that they can give us feedback, but not making it too obvious that it's annoying for them.
Okay. Any more questions from the audience? Don't be shy. Everybody has caught the catch box so far. It's fun.
Hi, your presentation was pretty much focused on desktop, if I got it right from the slides. So do you have similar mechanisms in place in your mobile apps to collect feedback, and how is the split between mobile and desktop when it comes to the number of reports?
So I work on the desktop browser in Opera, and I cannot really tell you a lot about the mobile browser. We have an ad blocker in the mobile browser. I don't think there's a feedback mechanism, or not a quick one in any case. On mobile, this is an even harder problem because they have less space to give users the opportunity to do anything in the UI. So I think actually we get off easy here.
Anyone else having a spontaneous question? Otherwise, I might have a last one for you, Arjan. What do you think how filterless authors could help prevent these issues for the users?
I think, well, what's always important is to stay very specific. Most of the breakages you see are with filters that are a bit too generic. And then what happens is they break sites that they did not intend to break, but that they did not intend to fix either. So they weren't intended to block an ad on that site, but something goes wrong anyway.
Thank you. Final chance. Going once, going twice. Okay. Thank you so much, Arjan. Big applause.